Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me, as always, is Danny Gillette, and we're back for our Saturday morning chat. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're going to get back on track here, as my old idol Chris Farley used to say. So, but anyways, after that segue, how you doing this morning, man?
I love Chris Farley. Just reminded me of Tommy Boy. I love Chris Farley. I love Tommy Boy. I love Saturday Night Live. They don't make it like they used to, but I'm very thrown off because usually you're in the first box over here and I'm over here. So it's going to take me a little bit to get used to, but I'm doing good.
Yeah, the good old Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, some classic. Love Chris Farley. Beverly Hills Ninja, also an underrated movie there. So
and his appearance as the bus driver in Billy Madison.
That is a good one. Yeah, that might be his best role when he's like sitting there eating the lunch. Oh man, that's awesome. Well, there you go, you guys. This is why you came to the chat, is to talk about Chris Farley. But a lot of interesting things actually did happen. Before we kind of get into our conversation on everything this week, basketball, Brian Ferentz, and all that stuff, make sure that you like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Your support definitely drives the channel forward. So we appreciate that. If you haven't done it, take a couple of seconds. It really, really does help us out. But yeah, as Danny, you wrote about it at HuskerBigRed.com yesterday. I'm not sure what everybody else has seen about it, but Brian Ferentz, took a little visit to the Nebraska offices this week, and not really sure if it was just kind of a coaching, learning football thing, or at any rate. But what are your thoughts on the whole Brian Ferentz visiting Nebraska? Not sure exactly what it means, but
I have no problems with it. I know a lot of people have problems with it. They say he's going to take intel back to his dad or something. And I'm not too worried about that part of it. If he comes in as like a tight ends coach, for example, or assistant as, to the tight ends coach, because I know Satterfield was, kind of slated to be at the position, then I would rather have Ferentz than Satterfield as tight ends coach, because the work he's done, strictly as a tight ends coach, we're talking about here, people, has been pretty good. So I wouldn't mind that at all. People were freaking out. Oh, he sucks, blah, blah, blah. He sucked as an offensive coordinator and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other thing. And, being a tight ends coach is a heck of a lot different than being an offensive coordinator. So I would have no problem bringing him in. I don't think he's going to give his dad any secrets or anything like that. I mean, he worked as a tight ends coach with the New England Patriots back in the early part of the 2010s. So I would have no problem at all bringing him in. I mean, he's shown an ability to develop tight ends. And for those living under a rock, we have some pretty good ones coming. And so I would love him. I would love for him to come in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, I think there's a few thoughts that I had. One, I know that, Bill Belichick obviously was just here to visit in Lincoln, right? That he did a coach's thing, or he's going to be doing in April. One. Yeah, he's going to do one. Sorry, in April. But he just made that announcement that he's going to be doing that. So, and Brian Ferentz worked for Bill Belichick before. Matt Rule obviously has ties to Bill Belichick, and honestly, to me, what this feels like is just kind of them having a kind of a football chat. I honestly feel like that Brian Ferentz is going to try to get back into the NFL, maybe as a tight ends coach, like you were saying. I really don't see him coming to Nebraska. It's possible, but as Mitch points out, we're full up on coaches, so there would have to be. Some change, and at least if he was going to be the tight ends coach, the on-field tight ends coach, like the assistant to the tight ends coach. Let's give him a Dwight Schrute type role here on the Nebraska coaching staff.
Yeah, exactly.
I like how you meant put, that just cracked me up a little bit, but he could. I mean, he definitely could be an analyst. He definitely could come in and be, an analyst and make a decent amount of money and, help coach tight ends. I mean, we all know that analysts do more than they're probably supposed to do, but the NCAA has so many things it doesn't care about that it doesn't care much about that either. So, but so that would be interesting. I mean, I'm not that worried about, like him stealing secrets. I don't think Matt Rule's like, hey man, here's the playbook. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I've said a million times, like these guys know what the other program's doing. It's not like, It's not like Iowa and Nebraska like went into the game last year. Like, yeah, there might be a trick play too or here, you know, something like that. But for the most part, I mean, these guys know what they're doing. It's about execution more than, you know, getting into the playbook or whatever. But I doubt that Matt Rule like left his playbooks, you know, lying around so that he can take it back to, you know, Kirk. But it is interesting to have, you know, I mentioned this off the air, you know, with my Michigan side of things, it would be interesting. I don't know if you'd have like a former Ohio State coach coming into the, you know, the building there. So it is an interesting dynamic with the rivalry, but all in all, I don't see anything coming of it, and I don't really think it's that you know, big of an issue for you know, Matt Rule. I think that my guess is that Brian Ferentz's next coaching job will be in the National Football League.
Which honestly, I don't think, you know, it could be like a Jeff Hafley Green Bay situation. Like, honestly, there's some coaches who just do better in the NFL. And granted, we'll see, you know, time will tell what Hafley can do. But, you know, Ferentz did a good job, like Mitch mentioned. And I remember watching just Gronk and Aaron Hernandez just absolutely destroying defenses. So, I mean, you know, I think he would be a good addition if he decided to come, you know, and, you know, if you were worried about opponents, you know, stealing, you know, what we're trying to do. Like, for example, last year, you could tell just from watching tape that we didn't have a solid quarterback situation. So at the end of the day, the secrets, you know, these secrets will often show themselves on the tape.
Yeah, there's not a lot of secrets in football, really. I mean, that's just. But anyways, Mitch. Yeah, there are strict rules about analysts. Strict rules. There's also strict rules about tampering. You know, giving players enticing players with NIL. So I mean, the whole Scott Frost thing. Like, I feel like somebody ratted Nebraska from the inside. You know, I honestly don't think that the NCAA is like, you know, unless you get told on. I really don't think that they are doing much of anything to try and stop, you know, analysts from, you know, being on the field. And when teams do get caught, there's not much that really comes of it. So, you know, I know what you're saying and I get the rule, but I think the reality is that analysts all over the country are doing a lot more than they're supposed to be doing. And that's just, at some point, I think that that's one of those rules that's going to go away. You know, the on-field coaching of analysts, I think they're just going to stop trying to enforce it because it's unenforceable. I mean, unless you're going to have like somebody there at every single practice, I just don't see how you enforce it. So that's my thoughts on it.
It's one of those things where the NCAA tries to act like they care and they're controlling the situation, but they really aren't.
And I mean, honestly, like a lot of stuff that happens when the NCAA, like, you know, all the Michigan stuff, like that was literally all a whistleblower. Like if it, you know, it's most of the time it's like stuff that happens both instances. Like a guy got fired, you know, the former recruiting director, and I think he's the one who mentioned like the cheeseburger incident or whatever to the NCAA. And I mean, so that's just how things kind of tend to go. You know, I really don't think that the NCAA, you know, they're a bunch of losers that want to cash their paycheck, and I hope they all go to hell, frankly.
I agree.
And they're ruining the sport. And the college, that's the other thing, is these college executives, man, this new playoff thing, this 14 team, like I'm fine with the 14-team playoff. And actually, let's just talk about this.
Actually,
Tyler
Mitch and I were
Fortner.
talking about this off air. I said, I'm looking at Dylan Rogers this year. He said, I hadn't heard that name in a while, but yeah.
I love
was
Dylan
thinking about him the
Rogers.
other day, yeah.
And I think, yeah, the linebacker room, you know, I like where they're at with Bullock and Thompson, but they definitely could use some younger guys like on the two. You know, it's hard to get through a season with just like a couple of linebackers. And Dylan Rogers, I really like him coming out of high school. I thought he was super underrated. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he does this spring, and I think he's going to be on the 2 deep. I just don't see how he's not going to be at this time.
Losing Heinrich and Reimer will definitely open up some spots for others, and I think Rogers could be one of those guys.
I don't remember this, Mitch. The NCAA has the dreaded
I'm gonna
ham
look that up.
sandwich.
Now I'm curious.
I don't remember that. But yeah, Reimer. I'm interested to see what Reimer does in the NFL. Like, I think he could be. I think he could be a special teams guy. But yeah, I just honestly don't remember. You know, that's that specific incident that you're talking about.
Okay, here we go.
But
hopefully this isn't blocked. A ham sandwich and a cheap plane ride may have gotten Nebraska quarterback Eric Crouch in trouble with the NCAA. Crouch appeared with an NU Board of Regent candidate along with his friend and accepted a plane ride through central Nebraska worth $13.41. He also ate a ham sandwich valued at $4 at the home of one of the Regent's friends in Hastings. So,
Lord, it's so ridiculous. And now guys are pulling up in Lamborghinis and whatnot.
I know cars that are worth more than my entire salary for all of my jobs.
But as I was about to say before we started talking about Dylan Rogers and the NCAA more, I do hate the proposal of the 14 team playoff. Not the idea of having 14 teams. I don't, that's not surprising to me. I don't think more teams is necessarily a bad thing. Plus, it does mean more money, and that's why the NFL went to 14 teams. So, and I don't think it's affected the NFL at all. The thing that I have a problem with is all these automatic berths. I think that those are absolutely just ridiculous. Not only to guarantee, if this is the proposal that goes through, the Big Ten and SEC champion would get the top 2 seeds, but the idea that you would guarantee, 3 berths each to the SEC and Big Ten, 2 berths each to the Big 12, and I think that's preposterous. Why do you need to do that? If you're a top 10 team in a 14-team playoff, you're going to make it. So I'm not really sure why they have to, have these built-in automatic berths. Is just silly to me, and I just think that that's totally going to take away from, I don't know, maybe not the regular season, but I don't like it, and I feel like you're going to see situations where teams get those automatic berths that don't deserve it. I mean, how many times have we seen that in the NFL with the divisional format over the years?
Yeah, and I think it's going to create a very interesting matchups too as well when it comes to the 14-team playoff, and you have to wonder how things would work out with the old BCS system, because I feel like the playoff was a good idea, but I'm not sure it's necessarily being executed as well as, not that fans would have liked, but to where it creates parity across the game.
Yeah, I think they take into account. I mean, they already are supposed to take strength of schedule into account. So I guess my other question too is, how are we good? It's not like, the Big Ten's got 18 teams. So how are we going to decide who's third place here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the same with the SEC. So, I think that there's more to this than we even realize. Like, I think that they're like the Big Ten and SEC are almost going to set up their own interconference playoff.
Which would make sense. Which would honestly make a ton of sense, and that would further remove them from the jaws of the NCAA, which is what they need to do anyway.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's so weird. I just think, I would do this. Guarantee the top 5 conference champions a berth, like they did right now, and then pick the next best 9 teams, whoever they are at large, and go from there. And I feel like, yeah, most of the time it is going to be 3 or 4 Big Ten or SEC teams, but not always. I mean, the ACC is the best basketball conference in the world. I mean, it is. It's the best, college basketball conference, but it's not this year. It's down this year. So, I mean, there's going to be times, even if, the crazy, big, scary Big Ten, where there might be a better team in the ACC. It's not going to happen all the time, but yeah, just people talked about like the insecurity of the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think you can really see that on display. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how everything shakes out, and strength of schedule is going to be important. With that being said, Matt Rule has said that he's kind of wanted he didn't directly say he wanted an easier non-conference schedule, but I think it's something Nebraska needs to do. I mean, quite honestly, all the teams that have made the college football playoff got warm-up games, and we started with, let's see, Minnesota, Northwestern, and Illinois the last couple of years to be in the season. And I would love to see us have a few cupcakes on the schedule, because quite honestly, like, you need those games to warm up. Minnesota was not a warm-up game. Northwestern was not a warm-up game. I mean, Illinois is one of the toughest teams in the Big Ten, just in terms of physicality and stuff like that. That's not a warm-up game either. So I'd love to see us have a few cupcakes, and I'm not ashamed. And people say, oh, competition, rah, 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 rah. Well, you need those warm-up games, and we haven't gotten those warm-up games, and whoever made the schedule, I don't know what they were thinking at the time. It was probably Moose, so that says it all right there, honestly.
I think you have to be smart. I don't think you want to say you're never going to play, other Power 5 teams. I think it depends like what your schedule looks like, because it can be a positive and a negative thing. Like for Michigan this year, they play Texas in the non-conference, and so that's obviously, that could hurt them. But if they find a way to win that game, then they probably can lose 3 games in the Big Ten and still, as long as Texas has a pretty good team. I mean, they would still, I think, have a good chance of making the playoffs. So, I mean, I think it is going to be interesting because I do believe that even in the 12-team playoff, I think if your resume is good enough, you can make it at 9-3. I think 10 wins is probably, where you really need to be. But, if you're like Michigan and you're 9-3 or whatever, and you've beat like Texas and say you beat Ohio State or one of those other teams, like, you're probably going to get in. So I do think that now that there's more forgiveness, like you can go through the season with more than one loss and still be okay. I do think that encourages some of that stuff. But Matt Rule is right, though, in the sense that if you've got, I just think you have to be careful, because if you've got, I think if Michigan looked back and knew that they were going to play all these teams, because they're playing Washington, they're playing USC, they're playing, Oregon, Ohio State. So they're already playing, 4 teams that finished last season in the top 25. Would they have added a 5th game to that? I don't know if they would. So I think that's where you got to be careful if you're, Matt Rule in Nebraska, because it's like, yeah, you do want to schedule those opponents and they can add value, but do you want to add, a Texas in a year where you might play Michigan and Ohio State and maybe like USC or Oregon too? Like, do you want to add? So yeah, I can see where he's coming from, but I can see some value in still scheduling some of those games, but there probably is more downside than upside for sure.
Yeah, and I think Matt Rule's point was that we're already gonna have to play USC. We're already gonna have to play Ohio State. We're already gonna have to play Oregon and Washington. There are gonna be tougher games on the schedule. So I wouldn't mind, honestly, a few cupcakes at least to begin the season and get things sorted out.
And then another thing too, they're adding, proposing to add, the 2-minute warning to college football, and then helmet communication and tablets and stuff, which I'm not sure why this wasn't done.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might have been done already. Well, not
kind of stupid, but
done already. But tablet communication, I'm all for. Helmet communication, I'm all for, because having been on a sideline, and I'm sure you can attest to it, it's very hard to communicate in the middle of a play and scream from the field to the sideline and have the other person hear you. And then 2-minute warning. I mean,
I guess
I'm kind of indifferent to that, honestly. I
guess part of what they're saying is that they kind of make this argument, which I'll believe it, put this under the category of I'll believe it when I see it, but they're saying that the 2-minute warning at the end of each half will make for more natural TV breaks, because these TV companies will then know the breaks are coming. So they're saying that they'll get rid of more of those back-to-back, like score a touchdown, commercial break, kickoff, commercial break.
Yeah, so, no, they won't.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thought exactly. But we'll see. I do think, it will add end of game strategy. I mean, that's the thing, is it's a huge component. Like if you look at the NFL, I mean, that extra timeout is huge. So I think we'll probably see even more, maybe comebacks in college football with it. I do think that it's very good that they're going to go to the helmet communication, although some schools aren't going to want to do it. I guarantee you that Brent Venables in Oklahoma are voting against that, because he's an expert sign stealer. So the NCAA has encouraged sign stealing for a long time. It's not against the rules. No matter what, people will want to say about the whole Michigan scandal, you can steal signs. It's been encouraged. And there's a lot of the best programs in college football are really good at it. And that's why they haven't wanted to bring in this, electronic, because it evens the playing field. Now every team that has the sign stealer that every team has on their staff, and I'm sure Nebraska has one too, now that person is worthless. So
I want to try to do, Mitch says you guys should do a 2-minute show during that time. I want to try to do some live streams for the games this season, because I think it's going to be a really fun season. Just some reaction streams, because we can't show the game because of copyright, but maybe have some reaction streams during the course of the season. And that would be pretty cool, because I think it's going to be a fun season to document too. I think we're going to need to document all this, because it's going to be a exciting time for not only Nebraska football, but Nebraska athletics.
Yeah, it is going to be a fun season. I definitely believe that. A 2-minute show during that time. We'll see how long the commercial break is for the 2-minute warning. It'll probably be longer than 2 minutes.
It'll probably be like 22 minutes. No, probably like 5 or 6, but
today we want to try to keep it tight to about 30 minutes. We got about 11 more minutes to go, you guys. If you got any other questions or anything else, put it in the chat. But you have a baby I have to help take care of. So at any rate, just wanted to put that out there. This weekend, man, tomorrow, huge game for Nebraska basketball. Thursday night, was disappointing. It was disappointing, and I am mad at. I do think the officiating wasn't good.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
necessarily want to say that's the reason Nebraska lost. They missed a lot of shots, and they took
they
too
did.
many threes, and which is interesting because Ohio State didn't want teams to shoot that many threes, and Nebraska shot more threes than they shot twos.
I was actually thinking about it. We were talking about perimeter defense in our pre-show on Thursday, and meanwhile, Nebraska was trying to be like the Golden State Warriors of 5 years ago. So,
I mean, but the thing is like they didn't get bad looks. I mean, Juwan Gary he had that slam dunk, which how did he not get fouled on that play? I mean, he got shoved as he dunked it. I mean, it's like, my God. And then, but he missed. He had 2 layups that were pretty much open that he missed in the last couple of minutes. He had 2 open threes.
Yep.
So it's like, if he hit, and I think one of those was to tie the game, but if he even hits like 2 of those shots, it goes totally different. But the sequence that really just drove me insane and that wanted to make me, throw my remote at the TV was we were down like 6, maybe 7 points, and Jamarcus Lawrence came down the floor, and they called him for a push-off. They called him for a push-off and an offensive foul. On this next possession, Jamison Battle pushed off on Jamarcus Lawrence, shoved him like 3 feet, goes up for a jump shot, and then they call him for an and one. Literally the same thing that they called an offensive foul on one end, they give the guy an and one for on the other end. It was the same play.
I hate Jamison Battle. I really can't stand Jamison Battle. He's annoying. And then they had, traveling calls on Kesey, which I didn't agree with necessarily. It's like anytime he moved, they immediately called him for a travel. It was horrendous. And say what you want about the road woes. Yes, they've been well documented, but I believe the disparity was something like 23-9 in free throw attempts. And
it was 28-8, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That sounds even worse. So, yeah.
Casey did not travel when he was.
No,
and that's like the second time this month he's been called for traveling when he did not travel. I'm like, what are you guys like refereeing your first game ever? Is this middle school? Do you not know what a travel?
Honestly.
And then what drives me crazy is he literally does not I literally on one of the travels, I watched it like 7 times because I'm like, he did not pick up his pivot foot once. And then you have guys who are doing this foot shuffle thing and they travel like 4 times and they're like, oh, it's every single, if any Big Ten referee watches this from football or basketball, you, sir, should not have a job. You're terrible. And that's how I feel about it.
Imagine if Chris Peterson changes the entire landscape of officiating. That would be pretty cool.
Fire them all. Of course, then we probably won't have anybody to officiate the games. But
honestly, that might be better. Just let them play. Stop calling all these ticky-tack fouls. The one that drives me crazy is when, a guy slams his body into somebody, the defender just goes up with his hands up and foul on the defender. It's like, what is he supposed to do there?
All right, let's see. What football room are you most worried about right now and why? I was RB worried, but I saw pics of Amir working out and giving it hell, so shoulder must be doing good. Ives looks like he's added 20 pounds. So, yeah, I guess which position room is what Mitch means there. What position room are you most worried about, Danny?
Running back, because it all depends on the health of Irvin and Ramir Johnson. And, we saw the health issue kind of rear its ugly head at the beginning of the season, and I just hope they stay healthy in general. I don't think the health of the running back room is going to destroy the entire offense, kind of like it did last year. Now that we have Dylan Raiola and a more hopefully open passing concept type of offense, but I really want the running back room to be healthy, just for the sake of I want to see Irvin play. I want to see Johnson get a full season under his belt, and both those guys have had terrible luck, so I would love to see them have a bounce back year this year. I mean, Matt Rule called Gabe Irvin one of his breakout players last spring, and I'd love to see Irvin finally have a good, healthy season and play well.
Yeah, I probably agree that might be running back just because I'm not really that worried about any other. I feel pretty good about quarterback, receiver. I mean, quarterback, there's a lot to prove. I think there's a lot of unknowns, but I feel really good about the talent there. And I feel pretty decent about having Harburg as like the third string guy, as the safety net type thing. I like offensive line as long as everybody can get, healthy, like especially, Turner Corcoran. And I think the defensive line is really good. Linebacker, I would say, the only other one that would probably, be on par with running back would be linebacker, just because I do think there are some guys that need to step up. But, Bullock played well last year, I thought, and Thompson coming over from Syracuse. He knows the system. But yeah, some guys like Dylan Rogers will have to step up, and that's with the running back room is somebody's going to have to step up and really do something that they've never done before, and that nobody in this running back room has been a full-time starter for 12 games and been successful and stayed healthy. I love Dowdell. I love what he can do. I think he's going to win the job. And then I think it's a matter of like, what can Gabe Ervin and Ramir and those other guys, add to it, add to what he does, because I do think that Nebraska is still going to need, you can't get through the season with just one running back. You can't do it, especially in the Big Ten. It's impossible. I mean, Michigan tried to do it with Blake Corum, and he's superhuman, and he still got hurt, 2 years ago because they gave him the ball way too much. So I don't think that it's smart to give anybody more than like 15 or 17 carries a game, because I just think they'll wear down. But I do think that Dowdell's going to be that guy, and I'm interested to see. Hopefully they can keep Emmett Johnson here. I was encouraged he was at least part of the slam dunk contest, so maybe that's wrong of me, but I took that as a more of a positive sign going forward.
Yeah, that doesn't mean shit. I'll wait until the spring, and then we'll see how it goes, because AJ Allen looked to be, fully with the program until the spring. And imagine if we still had AJ Allen. That would have been nice, because he's buried in the Miami running back depth chart right now. So I wonder if he regrets transferring just because of playing time. He did get some last year, but
yeah, sometimes guys make bad decisions. There's a lot of, they get forced. They think short-sighted. Like guys. I mean, even like the guy that left Michigan for Alabama, I think that was a bad decision, because he instead of playing on the same defense that he played in the year before, because they got the guy who ran the system in Baltimore, and getting a position where he was going to start.
Don Martindale.
Now he's going to Alabama. This kid, he's going to be in a whole new system, and who knows how that's going to translate. So instead of if he stays at Michigan another year, boom, he's probably drafted, and he might be getting drafted there. But it's like the draft pick reward is going to be better for you than the NIL reward if you're a good player. If you're not a good player, then if you're like Cameron Ward, you're not that great, take the NIL money, because you're never going to get it in the NFL. But if you have an NFL future, I wouldn't leave my program to chase NIL money somewhere else.
Ernest Hausman would have been nice here. Speaking of guys that probably should have.
No, sorry, dude. Hausman's going to start, and he's going to be an NFL draft pick at Michigan. That was
he would have helped. That's what I'm saying.
Part. Well, he would have helped here, yeah. But he definitely is going to be. He's going to be a star this year.
Oh yeah. I know. No, I'm just saying he would have helped the linebacker. If if Hausman would have stayed, I think he would have at least started here and helped out the linebacker room.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He would have started last year. He would have been the best. He would have been the best player probably on the defense last year.
He made a good decision, but I miss him. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Because Ty Robinson and Hutchmaker were good, but the way he played the last 5 games, I don't think even Michigan fans realize how good this guy is and how good he can be, because they had two guys that are going to get drafted ahead of him. But I truly believe if he was on Nebraska last year, he would have been our best defender.
Yeah, but I think it would have fit very well in this defense.
Yeah, but it is worked out. I mean, and he did get to play, quite a bit. Won a national championship there at Michigan, but
I do remember that video. It was like the end of March, and I do remember that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, some guys just doesn't work out, and
although Mario Cristobal isn't exactly Mr. Sunshine and Rainbows and Fluffy Clouds either, so I wonder how that's working. But you never know.
Yeah, you never know, and it's I guarantee that I'm sure money had something to do with it. That's just how it works anymore. But yeah, college football it's in a weird spot. It is in a very weird spot. But in terms of basketball, I mean, that Rutgers game, that's a must win for Nebraska. I'm not saying that they're on the bubble yet. They haven't, the bracketology's basically kept them the same. But if you lose to Rutgers at home, or if you lose, because Michigan and Rutgers are basically the 2 worst teams in the Big Ten. So either one of those will be a bad loss. And if you lose both of them, then I am going to be a little bit worried going into the Big Ten tournament. So that's where it is. Win one of those 2 games, and I think they're in.
Honestly, the Big Ten tournament's a whole different animal, so I wouldn't necessarily be worried, but I would definitely like to see how they play in the tournament itself, because you never know with those tournaments. Just like the regular season, anybody can win anything on any given night, and I think to me the double bye is definitely crucial to hang on to.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where they're standing in that now. After their loss, I'll have to check the standings. But yeah, they definitely need to beat Rutgers for sure. 10-8. So basically, they're going to need Wisconsin to lose a game here at some point, which is
they have been
possible.
lately. So
Yeah. They have a tough schedule too. Michigan State's right there at 9-8. Iowa's right there. So they're still not in that bad a position for the double bye for the fourth place spot, but they can't afford any more losses. So that's
easier said than done. So we'll see.
Yeah, and that's true for their NCAA tournament resume too. So you don't want bad losses this time of the year. So hopefully PBA is going to be sold out tomorrow, and hopefully they will end the Big Ten regular season perfect at home. That would be pretty sweet.
What time is the game tomorrow?
3:30 or 5:30 Central.
Okay, cool. So I can watch the Celtics and then watch the Huskers.
There you go, man.
Yeah, big day of basketball.
It's getting to be that time of year. So, all right, guys. Well, I got to hit it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for our chat. We'll be back on Monday for another episode of the podcast. And as always, please make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.